Dr. Weinberg, the Big Ten and now the Pac-12 have announced that they are postponing a football season to the spring. Do you think it's the right decision for both conferences?
I hate to say this, Bill, on television, but yes, it is. Yes. And I think by spring, we're going to have a vaccine. The young men and women will all have been inoculated. Most of them will be immune from the disease, and we can have wonderful sports seasons. And there'll be folks like me in the audience out there.
Okay, and that's one of your concerns as well. If a conference did decide to play college football this fall, you believe there should be no fans in the stands, right?
That's correct. It's the perfect crucible, as doctors like to say, to spread the virus. If we put a lot of people in the stadium and taking temperatures when they go in, I hate to say this, Bill, that would not answer the problem.
Okay, the Big 12 is meeting this evening, and medical experts are going to be in attendance. If you were one of those medical experts in attendance, what advice would you give the Big 12 tonight?
I would tell them to do exactly what the Big Ten and Pac-12 did, that they really need to not cancel the season, postpone it until the spring and have a wonderful season when we can have 80,000 people in those stadiums. As you probably know, I've been to a few OU Texas games, and I hate to miss it. So I hope they have it this spring.
What is the biggest concern as far as playing football in the fall?
Well, to tell you the truth, it's not the offensive guard lining up from the defensive tackle and those two giving each other COVID. It's one of the football players in my locker room who goes out tonight and gets infected and comes and infects the whole locker room. Because I know the plan, one of the plans they've suggested is you test them every day. Problem is the tests aren't 100% accurate. Plus, they're not very good the first few days. You get infected today, it's going to be a minimum of 2 or 3 days before you're positive, and maybe up to a week, 10 days, during which time you're contagious. You're spreading the bug. In fact, we think maybe you're spreading that bug and most contagious before you become symptomatic.
Is the medical community split on this? Because the Pac-12 and the Big Ten, obviously on the advice of medical experts, have decided to postpone until the spring, and yet the SEC and the ACC, I assume, hearing from medical experts, are going ahead and trying to play this fall.
Good luck. The medical experts who are looking at the science are probably not split. The CDC, Dr. Fauci, Dr. Birx, the people that are really watching this, people that love football, and I'm one of those, would love to see football. We'd love to see school. We'd love to see kids in school. We've got a million reasons why all these things should happen and will happen. And I think, Bill, we are very close. We may be within a month of having a vaccine, an effective vaccine, that we can have 100 million doses and start giving it in this country.
Football coaches from Nick Saban to Jim Harbaugh have been quoted here in the last couple of days as saying that football players are safer in the football environment than if they were regular students on campus. What would you say to that?
Did you say Dr. Saban? I must have missed that somewhere. If I was him, I'd say the same exact thing. I want my kids out in the field. I want them playing. I want them practicing. I want them in front of 80 or 100,000 people. Well, they're not going to be in front of 80 or 100,000 people. Let's look at another sport. Look at the PGA. They've had a couple of caddies with positive tests. They've had, I think, 1 or 2 players. But they've done a wonderful job without fans. We watch it on television. This last week, we saw a fantastic PGA tournament. And we need sports back, but we need it back safely.
Here in the last week, there's been a lot of talk that the Pac-12 was getting medical advice about myocarditis. How concerning is myocarditis?
Myocarditis is one of the number of diseases that we found out can be a result of COVID. We originally thought COVID was a pulmonary disease. The little bugs got in your lungs, you got pneumonia, you were sick, you're on ventilators, you got well. a few people died. We found out fairly early it's actually a systemic disease. It's your whole body. When you get this disease, these bugs go all over your body and they destroy the small blood vessels. And those small blood vessels are in your kidneys and in your heart and in your brain. So we know that one of the side effects of COVID are strokes from blood vessel problems in the brain, myocarditis, heart problems, heart attacks, renal failure, kidney shutdown, liver failure, liver shuts down. There's even been some amputations of limbs because there's not blood vessels, not blood flow getting to the limbs. This is a terrible disease when we've learned a lot about it, and myocarditis is just one of the serious complications.
What advice would you give? Here in Texas, the UIL has delayed the start of preseason football practice until after Labor Day, the start of the regular season until late September. What advice would you give the high school football people here in Texas?
Well, I think one of the funniest things the UIL did is have different rules for the 5 and 6 versus the 1, 2, 3, and 4. I don't understand that. You'll have to ask them. But I would delay practice as they're doing. I would delay the start of the seasons. I would follow what's happening. One thing kind of interesting about this disease, we learn something about it every day. I read 10 to 20 papers about this disease every single day. 80% is junk science, 20% is real science. And it changes every day or every week. And so what we know on August 11th may not be the same thing we know in the middle of September. And when somebody in the middle of September says, hey, we have a vaccine coming in a couple of weeks, one of the government already has priority lists for who gets the vaccine. Obviously, it's the first responders, military, et cetera. But teachers and students are very high on the list of who's going to get the vaccines. So if we see that coming, it'll help everybody. We can settle down and figure out what we're going to do for the next month, 3 months, 6 months. And I've predicted a year from now, we're going to be looking at COVID in our rearview mirror.
And finally, I'm seeing some preseason practices, both college and the NFL, where players are wearing face coverings during practice. Is that something the NFL should do in regular season games?
I hope not. I hope we can play without those. I've worn a mask all my life. I wore them for 12, 14, 16 hours a day in the operating room. I might take it down in between cases, but I had cases that went 12, 14 hours. But you try to run around a track with a mask on, you try to run down the field 40 yards and catch a pass and then run back because the clock's already started. Boy, I hope not. I don't think it could be done.